when I recategorize how I'm feeling and I give it a different label, instantly my feelings about that thing starts to change. Instantly I start to feel differently. Instantly I start to shift. I was getting all mad as hell about some subject, and now I'm like finding myself, actually I'm kind of neutral now, which is good, because when you're not mad as hell, you can start to think. Hey guys, Matt Tait here from Fork in the Road, your channel for transformation. Currently walking along at Noosa Heads Beach in the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia. So I wanted to talk to you today about the idea to put into your head about the labels you give things. Now, this idea comes from the theory of scope and category, which is a theory put forward by Steve Andreas, one of the early implementers in the NLP space and coaching. Scope and category, and in particular I'm just going to talk about category, but scope comes into it very quickly. So if we talk about scope and category, labels, let's just categorize things first. Think about something you're not happy with, something that you're disgruntled with, something, old experience where it keeps popping up because you made a certain category about that label. Maybe you were wronged at work once. Maybe you were, jilted by an ex-partner. Maybe you were not happy with yourself in some experience where you felt guilty, right? Now, the good thing about all these things, whatever you're doing to yourself, remember, you're doing it to yourself. That is the main thing I want you to remember. You are doing it to yourself. It's all happening inside you. So if that's the case, you can control it. So if you want to be grounded, if you want to be more calm, you're more centered, more at peace with yourself, well, let's put some different labels on these things, learn the lessons, and maybe even change where the scope of that experience. So for example, if you're not happy with an old experience, maybe you could relabel it as a lesson, relabel it as a learning, relabel it as something where I'm getting better as a human being, something where the same mistake will not happen again. It's huge because that will actually make you feel good about yourself. If there's something in the past that you're feeling guilty about, well, think about the fact that that means that you're actually valuing the thing you didn't do, which actually makes you a good person. Let's say you feel guilty because you disrespected someone. I don't know, just take your pick. Well, that means that you feel guilty about it because you value respecting people. But you had to make a difficult choice about some situation, about their perception, about options you had in front of you, about what you do next. So you can feel good that, okay, well, I'm feeling guilty about something because I valued it, but I didn't live to it. So it can give it a different label. And that could be a lesson is the label. Now, I love this idea of the lesson is the label, and it's something that's going to make me a better person because I'm going to do it differently next time. So think about, what are you going to do differently next time you have that situation? Next time you are in that situation, you've got a choice. What are you going to do differently? Now, maybe you won't be faced with that situation again, but what I'm trying to say here is if you change the label, you can change how you feel about it, right? So if you're angry about something that happened with someone, well, maybe it's like, okay, well, maybe I need to relabel that as a lesson on maybe that's not the right person to have in my life if that person's done something wrong by you. Or if you're angry that you cut off in traffic, well, maybe you could even relabel it something simple like that person that cut me off, that got me so angry, what if they were late for their taking their wife off to hospital? Or what if they were racing to go and get their kids from school and they just lost themselves? Or what if there was something going on that was really bad and traumatic and they needed to fix it? Think about that for yourself. Think about that, how that made you angry, and what would it take to change the emotion? This is the idea of labels and how you categorize things. The next part of categorization is about how you feel about something. It comes down to the scope, which is like a perceptual position thing where you've not necessarily got all the information? What if you found out that you missed part of the information? What if you found out that you're actually, there's something else going on that's far bigger, far more important? Think about that for yourself. How you can, let's put my stuff on the ground, recategorize your experience. Recategorizing it by taking in more of the scope. So when you approach a building from 3 different sides, it looks different from different angles. And when you look at it, you get a bigger perspective of those angles. That's scope and category. And so what you're doing is you're increasing the scope of your perspective. You're increasing the scope of what's possible. You're increasing the scope of more information, which is really what scope is, and allows you to look at things differently. When I read the book Scope and Category, which was a book called 6 Blind Elephants with a pink writing, bit of a weird cover, but it was a very good book. And I identified like 50 odd videos I could do from the book that would be useful in day-to-day life. But the simple premise for this video is about your categorization, about the scope that you have in that categorization. So you think about how you categorize your experiences, then you think about the scope of how you got those thoughts into your head. You may not have the full picture. That's the main message from this little video today. You might not have all the information in your head. Something else might have happened that could change entirely how you feel about it. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, why not try and recategorize it and try and change the scope? Maybe the scope is to do with time. Time is a big part of scope and category. Time, when you're talking about time, maybe it's like, okay, there was this 10-minute period that it was a moment and I felt really angry. But when you take in a 1-hour period of that whole experience, something happened beforehand, something happened afterwards. Maybe you could have been doing something else. Maybe sort of there was like a fork in the road. Maybe something happened with the other people involved. You don't know the whole story because we're human beings. What do? We delete. What do? We distort. What do? We generalize. We delete, we distort, and we generalize. And so that's where scope and category. Now, why am I mentioning scope and category? Well, when I recategorize how I'm feeling, and I give it a different label, instantly my feelings about that thing starts to change. Instantly, I start to feel differently. Instantly, I start to shift. Oh, I was getting all mad as hell about some subject, and now I'm like finding myself, oh, actually I'm kind of neutral now. Which is good, because when you're not mad as hell, you can start to think. When you're not mad as hell, you can start to think about what you're going to do in your life. You're going to start thinking about how you can approach it differently with using your brain. So that is the idea. Anyway, so that's the idea with scope and category, to change how you feel. This is Tait from Fork in the Road. I hope this video has been helpful to understand a little bit about scope and category. I'll see you guys in the next video.